Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Blake? What? Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is back, everyone, for more SPTV, where every day's a great day. Not to be in a cult. We're going to have a little bit of fun tonight. Welcome, Jenna.
Thank you.
Welcome. I haven't had a studio guest in a while. Okay, so the name of the video is this the end for David Miscavige? We're here to talk about the Indict David Miscavige initiative. It's interesting that there even is like an initiative, because you'd think that in like what does it even mean? And what it means is Tom DeVocht, former high-level Sea Org member, has said, look, a lot of stuff has been done over the last 10, 15 years. A lot of information has been put out there, a lot of videos, a lot of documentaries, a lot of books, a lot of everything. But it's time to get serious about focusing on what will actually get David Miscavige indicted. And this is interesting. There's a lot to talk about.
Right. Yeah. I feel like Tom thinks that specifically talking about David Miscavige and getting him indicted is something that maybe Scientologists and ex-Scientologists and indie Scientologists alike could maybe get behind, because he feels like maybe it's not throwing Scientology under the bus. And so in that way, by focusing on David Miscavige, he feels like he will get more support and therefore it will be more effective. That's just my guess. Tom has not told me this. That's how it seems, though. Doesn't it seem that way to you?
Well, yes. And then I go, but like, well, for sure. He goes, yeah, the fact that independent Scientologists love Scientology, love L. Ron Hubbard, but hate David Miscavige. Mm-hmm. And the fact that ex-Scientologists who aren't indies tend to go, Scientology's bad, L. Ron Hubbard is bad, and David Miscavige is bad.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Does tend to cause rifts between people who identify as indie Scientologists, but there's not that many of them.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And ex-Scientologists. And I guess he thinks, I do remember reading in one of his blog posts that he thinks focusing on David Miscavige and not Scientology will make it easier for people who are currently in Scientology to agree with what's being said and to jump on board.
Right. Yeah. Right. And maybe actually on some level, he thinks that we need them because they have the most current information.
Right.
That just occurred to me.
Right. And I am definitely fully in support of indicting David Miscavige. I'm in support of any effort by anyone that they think, gets us closer to indicting David Miscavige. I do have some, whether you want to call them thoughts or concerns, I don't know if you'd call them criticisms, but what it's not is just finding fault with the initiative. Like nothing I feel about this and nothing I'm going to say about this is to find fault with the initiative.
Right. It's commentary.
Yeah.
I think that Tom in his initiative is saying, I want people on board and you're with me or against me. And he seems to sort of be like, and if you don't want to be with me, then I don't need you. But then he's also like, please come join. That's not a criticism. It's just kind of funny to me. It's like, do you want us or do you not? And I feel like I would be somebody who maybe somewhere he would be talking to as an ex-Scientologist, as somebody who's openly critical of David Miscavige. So I'm like, well, do you want us or do you... Am I crazy?
No, I mean, it's interesting. But first of all, you're not crazy, but I almost sympathize with what he's trying to do, because he knows there are so many people at odds with each other that if you seem too friendly,
poor Tom.
that if you seem too friendly with anyone, you automatically get indicted by others. I mean, you saw that recently when I just tried to help someone promote a frickin' protest. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
And I think Tom, and totally aside from the personal conflicts, I think people in all camps sort of took offense to some of Tom's early posts that made it seem like nobody had ever done anything effective before now. Right. But and I know that's not what he meant.
Right.
I know that's not what he meant.
Yeah. Yeah.
I lost our train of thought.
Well, you're saying that it's not a criticism. It's commentary. And like, of course, we can, and I would love to have a conversation with Tom. I'm sure you would be happy to have Tom on, but we're commenting on it publicly because Tom is posting publicly.
That's
and
right.
why not? This is YouTube.
That's right. Now, he
Let's do
didn't
this.
say you're either with me or you're against me.
Oh,
He did say, if you are with me, I will know it.
oh, okay.
And if you're against me, I will know it.
Okay.
Which I
It's
take it slightly differently, but
it's
that's
like
okay.
Santa Claus. It's like,
Right.
he knows when you
Oh,
are
but here's something I
sleeping.
wanted to say. Oh, sorry, I cut
He
you
knows
off.
it- It's fine.
Oh,
I was singing
he
Santa
knows
Claus.
if you're against him.
I just
It
wonder
sounds
how
like
he
we're
knows.
teasing him. We're just having fun. We're just having fun. Shit, I lost my train of thought. What is
You were
happening?
saying it wasn't criticism.
No, it was another train of thought that I was gonna get.
Well, now.
One thing I wanted to. We're getting into the weeds here, but we're just having fun. We're gonna take our time in this video here. So in the beginning, Tom said, "Hey, all of this division in the ex-Scientology community is the work of David Miscavige," and everyone who feels like they have a legitimate gripe with someone else would be like, "Don't you dare." Don't you dare invalidate the rightness of my complaint by saying it's a result of David Miscavige. And yet I also understand what he means, which is David Miscavige and his paid agents are 100% responsible for pouring gasoline on and driving deeper wedges, in all these relationships, without a doubt.
Right. Yeah.
However, when he then said, if you're with me, I will know it. And if you're against me, I will know it. I go, yeah. And that's true for everyone else as well. And that's where legitimate divides in the community have occurred.
Right.
And I did sort of want to, it's almost like I don't consider my feedback to Tom so important that he needs to hear every thought that goes through my mind.
Right.
But so I'm not like texting him like, here's what I think about something that you just said. But one of the things I would have said to him, if I were going to, is like, hey, you know how you feel that what you're doing is very righteous and good and should be supported. And if someone's against you, you're going to know it and you're going to act accordingly. That's how everyone else feels as well. Right. So if someone was acting against you and then you had a problem with that person and they told you, you're letting David Miscavige win. Not like don't say that, but understand.
Yes.
Everyone feels that way.
Right. Yeah. I do think that it is like a pattern where Tom isn't like a new person in the community, but someone will come and they'll be like, all right, I'm going to do this the smart way, or these other people did it wrong. When the truth is that a lot of people have been working hard for a long time. And also Tom is very self-aware. Like he's been like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have come out in that way.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it did sound like that at first. And it was a little bit like,
Yeah. In some of Tom's early blog posts, he made analogies to other criminal organizations that were taken down by RICO laws, and how by going after the head of the group and not the entire group, that is how the indictments and the prosecutions and the incarcerations were able to succeed. And I appreciated the analogy, but I felt there was one thing that was being missed with the analogy. In each of those instances, the number one guy at the top was not the only person who went to jail. And he was not the only person that did all the bad things.
Right.
And the prosecution, the investigations and the RICO and everything did not start by going after the top guy. It started by going after low level, mid level. I guess we're talking about like the mob, right? Mid-level guys, indicting them, prosecuting them, convicting them, getting them to cooperate and saying, yes, these are the things I did. These are the crimes I committed, participated in, ordered, whatever. And my boss is the one who ordered me to do that. Right. It can't just all be the crimes committed by the one guy at the top.
Right.
And if Tom was right here, I'm sure he'd be saying, yeah, I'm not saying it should only be the guy at the top. But the problem is everything that I'm seeing so far, what I'm not seeing, and again, it's not like, I feel so like, I'm not trying to like wag my finger at anybody here, but I feel like in the last 15 or 20 years, what we have not seen unless I'm missing it, is these high-level executives saying, these are the crimes I participated in and committed.
Right.
And here's how I was ordered to do that or expected to do that by David Miscavige. Or I did the crime and then I put it in my daily report to him and he knew about it. He knows about it. He gave me an attaboy or whatever. I only ever hear David Miscavige was bad to me. I saw David Miscavige being bad to others.
Right.
And all the stories tend to be like, I was the good guy.
Right. Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
And I understand why people tell their stories that way.
Right. Yeah.
But that's not how indicting the head of a criminal organization works. It's not everybody running around talking about how the head of the mob beat them up.
Right.
It's what crimes did you commit and how is that connected to the guy at the top?
Right. Yeah. Well, and I feel like implied in that is that they're getting a confession, you know? So it's like, if you get a confession to a crime, it's like, how much investigation or whatever do you need to do? A confession is like, I mean, I don't know if this is actually true, but it's like, why would somebody say, I did this systematic thing to hurt this many people, to traffic this many children in this illegal way? Like, how can they reject that? You know, it's not like Scientology could then say they didn't really work for us. If they say, I worked for the Church of Scientology, I was a leader in a leadership position, there's nothing Scientology could do about that. And if they were to say, and these are the crimes that I committed. And this isn't me being like, oh, he needs to confess his crimes. It's more like, no, I'm not saying they're crimes to be mean. I'm saying that he probably didn't even know they were crimes at the time. He also, like Tom also grew up in Scientology, as did Mike Rinder, as did Debbie Cook, as did my own mom. It doesn't change the fact that maybe now that they're gone and separated from this thing, they have the internet, they have the wherewithal to know, okay, or maybe they are now parents or grandparents or something like that. And they can look at that time and be like, that was not okay. That was fucking insane. And that was actually child trafficking. And that was child abuse, not letting all of these kids go to school and so on, and be like, I led the organization over which all minors in that area were my responsibility. I was the head man on that base. I am going to now say, hey, I was a part of this. I didn't report this. I didn't even know that I was supposed to report it. Now I do. And now I'm going to. I confess. Like, how can Scientology, like, that automatically comes back on Scientology. Scientology can't deny that they worked there. No amount of affidavits from random people can say.
Right.
So it's almost like the confessions that they're looking for in other people can come from them.
And should first.
Right. Yes.
That's the one thing. Like, I want to fully, without reservation, support the initiative.
Right.
But I also don't just want to blindly support something that seems to be missing the same point that seems to have been being missed for the last 15 years, which is the executives who had broad responsibility actually saying, this is what I did. This is what I oversaw. This is what I ordered. This is what I became aware of in the area under me. And then explain David Miscavige's role, involvement in, approval of whatever.
Right. And even before that, take everything that you now think, or now that you're saying your involvement was, and think, is it just David Miscavige? Let's just take an example. Okay. So like I met Tom DeBach first when I was 9 years old. He is so nice to me. Even just looking back at that time, like I can see that this man would be a wonderful father someday, because he was really sweet with me, spent a ton of time with me. Now I feel like I'm accidentally making him sound like a pervert.
Well, no. He was your legal guardian.
Well, this was even before, when my mom was still in Florida with me. But so that was the time when all was good. And then when I came back, when I was 12 years old, to work in Clearwater, basically how the structure of the organizations work in Clearwater is that there's the flag service organization, where they deliver all the counseling and training. And then there's the hotel organizations. Is this too much?
No.
Okay, there's these two organizations.
Like the estate, like the flag crew, the estates org.
Yeah.
The hotel org sounds funny to me.
I know, but that's more normal speak than
Oh, okay.
estates org.
Oh,
More
okay.
people will understand. The people that like literally clean the hotels, they like clean the rooms, they serve food. There's
Yeah.
these two parallel
Maintenance.
organizations. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Like landscaping and stuff. Anyways, so then on top of that, there's a little management organization. And on top of that, there's what's called CMO. And the head of that organization, the commanding officer of CMO, I worked in CMO, was Tom DeVock. So he's basically the most senior person on the entirety of the Flag land base for the vast majority of time when I was there. The vast majority of time.
Yeah.
So he was somebody that was widely respected like a god. Now there was maybe like 2 RTC reps at times that were there who were senior to him. But anyways, but he was like the man at this base. And when I look back, this isn't something that I would have seen at the time, but when I look back and I see things like, you know, I want to say like at least 30 kids from the boarding school where I grew up being transported to across the country, 3,000 miles from their parents to the Flag base and being put directly to work as people who carry auditing files. That's pretty much what most of their jobs were.
They were like folder pages.
Yeah. They were forbidden to call their parents at the international base because that was supposed to be a secret. And I'm like, this is a huge child trafficking event. And they were only allowed to go to school 1 day a week. Like looking back on that, like I know that Tom was in charge at that time, or at the very least as an adult person who was very senior and whose wife at the time was also a part of this. It's like, how do you not say I was a part of this? I oversaw and I personally witnessed this child trafficking event which occurred. That's a big deal.
Yeah. And you know, that's one event. And
That's
like
one
what
event.
year that you're thinking of that event? Because I'm going to mention another one.
Okay, so that would have been like 1999.
That late?
Yeah. Mhm.
Really?
Yeah.
So, you know, I went to Flag in 1993 and was there until 1996. I was 13 when I got there. I was there for pretty much all of the years of 13, 14, and 15.
Mm-hmm.
So it was basically 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of that training time, there was no less than 100 of us underage
Mm-hmm.
Scientology staff members and Sea Org members,
Mm-hmm.
because this included people from other non-Flag Sea Org bases.
Mm-hmm. Right.
We were all flown in from all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
not just the United States.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There was probably, yeah, I mean, I don't know if there was kids as young as 12, but basically from 13 to 17 years old.
Right.
And I know there was 100 of them because Kylie Rose Pierce was made the minor IC and I was the deputy minor IC.
Mm-hmm.
And all at the end, the only allowance there was for minors was we went home 30 minutes early so we could all do close order marching at the Hacienda, because somehow that was better than like no one understood why.
Yeah.
But so even whereas the Sea Org, the Sea Org members who worked at Flag who were underage, they actually went to school 1 day a week.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And the only reason they did that is because it was a legal requirement.
Right.
Otherwise, nobody would ever do it.
Oh, of course.
The outer org trainees who were kids, even the Sea Org members who were outer org trainees,
Mm-hmm.
did not go to school. Not only did we not go to school, we did labor for 40 hours a week because our orgs didn't pay for room and board. So we
Right,
worked
work
we did work study. We worked in the
Mhm.
hotels.
Right.
We worked in the restaurants.
Mhm.
We worked doing renovations. We did HVAC. We did demolition.
Right.
That is a mass child trafficking event that lasted for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought of that as child trafficking.
Right.
I'm sure Tom DeVock never thought of that as child trafficking.
And I'm absolutely certain Tom DeVock was also child trafficked
Yes.
as a kid.
Yeah.
So.
But he knows it is now.
Right.
The
Mhm.
government would consider it this.
Right.
And it's an example of, okay, did David Miscavige know all of that was going on? Yeah, of course he did. But that wasn't going on just because of David Miscavige. That's a normal training program in Scientology.
Right. Yes, exactly.
But it
that
is a
also-
crime. I'm
it
sorry,
is
go
a
ahead.
crime. No. Sorry. I feel like I was taking it off track. But like by the same token that Tom DeVock was, like how I'm saying, oh, he was probably trafficked as a child too. So the fuck was David Miscavige. And that's
Debbie
where-
Cook.
Exactly. Yeah. And my own mom. I mean, my own mom didn't even go to school the entire time when she was in the Sea Org.
Yeah, she's probably like, what are you talking about? You only went to school
Exactly.
one day a week. I didn't go to school at
That's
all.
how Tom probably is like, what the fuck are you complaining
You
about?
whiny little shits.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But like that was happening when L. Ron Hubbard was around, long before David Miscavige. That's why David Miscavige thinks it's okay. He has no excuse at this point. But I'm just saying, like, maybe look at those things and then reevaluate the basis of your plan. And hey, if you still think that that's the one, that's like the most important thing, or if you just think it's the easiest thing, then explain it to us. I will support it.
Now, nothing that we're saying is even inconsistent with the fact that David Miscavige is the head of an ongoing criminal enterprise and what needs to be indicted and prosecuted using RICO statutes. What we are saying is entirely consistent with that.
Right.
What we're saying is, yeah, but in order to say the man at the top made me do it, you have to say what the hell it is you did.
Right.
And you have to admit that you did it.
Yes.
And it has not to be like, well, I only did it because. Well, maybe Tom's not. Maybe no one's actually saying I only did it because.
Right.
Because we're not saying David Miscavige isn't the head of an ongoing criminal enterprise.
Right.
He is.
Yeah.
He is.
Yes.
But in an ongoing criminal enterprise, the crimes are committed by people other than just the leader.
Right.
And that is not inconsistent with the fact of having the leader indicted.
Right. It's consistent with it. It's how you get the leader, basically.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And by the way, this isn't even an emphasis of Tom is responsible for crimes that he's not admitting to. Tom happens to be the only one who's speaking up about this right now.
Right.
Like, this is not a witch hunt against Tom.
Yeah.
I'd be having this exact same conversation if John Danielovich or Sean Smith or Charlie Bills or Don Jason or Alan Baram were the one starting the Indict David Miscavige initiative. I'd be like, start writing posts or doing videos about this stuff you did, because that's actually the example that needs to be set for what all these other executives need to be doing if that is the goal.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Because even all the stories is David Miscavige beat the shit out of me. David Miscavige beat the shit out of someone else.
Right.
It's like, okay, that's not going to get him indicted.
Right. It's the whole systematic thing. It's like for instance, when I was at Clearwater, I don't know if I should say Flagland Base, whatever.
Go ahead.
When I was in Clearwater and I was working there, Tom was the head boss on the whole base. Crap, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, okay. There was a man who was working at the place where the kids were taken care of, right? And he got sent to the RPF, which is like sort of like the gulag. It's like the program for people who fuck up. They wear all black. They are not allowed to speak unless spoken to. This program takes 9 months to 9 years.
I call it the labor and reconditioning camp.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This man was a pedophile and he was sent to this program. And it's like,
for being a pedophile
who worked with the kids. And it's like, I know that Tom was at the base. I know that he knew about it. I know that it's Scientology policy not to report people to authorities. I also know that is illegal. That is a Scientology policy. That's not a David Miscavige policy. Now, could David Miscavige lessen it? Yes, no, yes, he could.
Yeah.
But that still happened. It was still not reported to authorities I know that Tom knows about it. I don't know that David Miscavige knows about it.
And he might. You're just saying you don't know he does.
Yeah, I don't know that he does.
But you were there.
You
know Tom knows.
Yes,
Right.
I know Tom knows,
Right.
Or other instances that I've heard of individual kids who were
raped.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know if I
You
was
can
allowed to
say it.
say that word.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I know that Tom is aware of that. I know that.
And by the way, we're not talking about statutory rape. We're talking about Forcible rape.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so do I know that David Miscavige knows of that exact instance? No, I don't know that. So me, as somebody who was at the Flag Land Base, who Tom was my guardian, who I know, and somebody who I would think on some level would be good for Tom to have on his side. I mean, I could be kind of worthless, but especially doing this video, but like, I feel like those would be the questions that I would ask of Tom when I see his initiative that says indict David Miscavige, or does that make sense? Did I say that well?
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
I'd be like, why David Miscavige? Why not you? Or why not Scientology? Or just even another instance in that organization that Tom was the head of, right with me, was a 9-year-old who worked with me every day. We're responsible for cleaning the birthings of executives, including Tom's and his wife's, and all of the people who worked with him. We would clean their rooms, do their laundry. And this kid was 9 years old. And I mean, I would catch him doing things like hiding the dishes or hiding up in the rafters and playing video games or washing his shirt in like a toilet bowl. But like at the time I was like, this kid is extremely annoying. Why am I responsible for him? But looking back now as somebody who's had a 9-year-old little boy, I'm like, this is like really fucked up. He was living in a dorm without either of his parents there. He was doing all this work. He was like unable to do his own laundry or have clean clothes. And he just wanted to be a little kid and get away from doing these things. I know that Tom knows about this dude. Do I know if David Miscavige does? No, I don't know. But I know for sure that Tom does. And I knew about him too, but I was 15 years old.
And by the way, what's his first name? You don't say his whole name.
Sirio. Yeah.
And what makes me really scratch my head as to why we don't hear these stories. It's what everybody would care about.
Right. Yes. I think that's such a good point.
It's so compelling and human and real, and it gives a better context to what our experience was.
Right. I think that's such a good point. Sorry, am I totally?
No, go ahead.
But I think it's such a good point because, and this isn't just about Tom, but in the past, when the narrative becomes only about what goes on at the int base between adults, I think that to a Scientologist, that's very interesting, to somebody whose mind is still in Scientology, because those are like the most famous people and it's their internal drama and so on. But I think that if you're a person outside of Scientology who has never grown up there, who has had a childhood, who knows what it's like and how important it is to live with your parents and to be nurtured and to have an education, I think that is a huge, like, I think that's what people care about more, is the stories of growing up there. I think it's more relatable. It's more.
Yeah.
And
when the story is told in a way of, this is what I did,
mm-hmm.
people get it. When it's all this thing of like, this big bad man at the top was just created havoc everywhere. And all of us, God, we just couldn't believe it. And we were just all the victims of the abuse. And it's like, that might be true. Everybody was afraid of David Miscavige. I could see it in the eyes of executives.
Same, yeah.
But your story, the part of your story that relates to indicting David Miscavige is what you did, because it's what was expected of you and it's what was ordered and it's what you got to have, not what he did to you.
Right.
The ongoing criminal enterprise is what all of we, you and us collectively did to others.
Right.
Not what David did to everyone.
Right. Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Now, some people might be going, why is it that all you younger generation ex-Sea Org members just wag your fingers at the older second gen saying they're not coming clean with their crimes? How come you guys haven't come clean with your crimes?
Right. Yeah.
Can I start?
Yeah.
I wish I had more shit I could fucking confess to. I wasn't in management. I wasn't an executive at the Flagland base. I mean, and now I'm sure. Okay, did I yell at people? Yes, but Anna Dementov, you deserved it every single time. Okay. And Bill Screevers, you even more so. No, okay. Yelling at someone's not a crime.
Right.
You know? I the worst thing that I ever did was having to audit Katrina James, a 14-year-old, perhaps, on the 000A0B lists,
Right.
which I've done a video about how it is absolute child abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And yet in my mind at that time, I was as much of a victim. I was like, it's almost like that hurt me as much as it hurt her. We were talking about this earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
And you go, but it's funny because that's how I felt, thinking age didn't matter.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I am just as horrified to have to do this auditing, audit this subject on her.
Right.
I didn't think there was any difference between me and her. I was 24,
Right.
she was 14.
Which may or may not be how Tom felt.
What's that?
Which may or may not be how Tom felt when he was doing things, being the
Sure.
The difference is that he was a high level. Sorry, I totally cut you off.
Well, that's fine. I'll just
Everyone's
finish.
okay.
And so it's like, as I was the technical secretary at ASHO. I was over the course rooms and all of the auditing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, supervising someone on their courses is not a crime.
Right.
If there was a child, first, I don't remember any children doing the Pro TRs course at ASHO. ASHO is not the kind of org where you're going to have children.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But like, if they were,
Mm-hmm.
if there had been children,
Mm-hmm.
I do videos about it. It wouldn't be a thing.
Yeah. Right.
I don't think anyone in Scientology should be ashamed of or covering up or protecting anything that happened. We were in a fucking cult.
Right. Exactly.
I oversaw all the auditing. That just means it's my job to make sure the auditors get into session.
Right.
I'm not telling them what to audit. I'm not reading the folders. I don't know what's happening in the auditing sessions.
Right.
And if I did, I'd fucking talk about it.
Right. Yeah.
You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about crimes, even the examples that we've given here,
Mm-hmm.
we're talking about rape. We're talking about sex abuse.
Right.
We're talking about suicides being
Mm-hmm.
covered up.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about actual crimes, not just things that are mean
Mm-hmm.
or inappropriate. And so,
Right.
and I felt I might have more on that, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think that I totally understand everything you said. And in addition to that, it's when you're an executive of an organization, Tom actually did a blog post about this, saying how leadership matters and something. I wish I had it here. I tried to log in and find it, but I'm not subscribed. I'll subscribe after this, I promise. But basically, like, it's kind of the same thing applies. The higher up you are, the more oversight you have, the more responsibility you have, the more things you know about. And also, when you're an adult at that time, it's a bit different than like I was a kid. So yes, I knew about Sirio, and I knew that, these two like 15-year-olds are being sent to the RPF for like touching someone's boob or something. But I'm not ordering those things, or I'm not an approval terminal on that, or I am not announcing it to everybody how horrible this is. I'm not enforcing those rules, and I'm a kid.
Right.
And the thing is that I would give Tom and everybody else, like, I feel like I would be the first person to defend them and be like, if they're saying I did this bad thing and I really want to talk about it now because it's really important, I would be the first person to be like, yeah, it's because you were in a cult. This is great. I support everything that you're doing. But when it sort of feels a little bit like it's easier, this isn't just Tom, for people to be like, oh no, it's all David Miscavige's fault. I had nothing to do with it. It is not true. That is not how a cult works. A cult, it is part of the human condition. How a cult how it controls people is through using something that people need inside of them, whether it's to have power, whether it's depriving them of any power, and then the only little bit of power they can have is to use it to basically fuck people over because they're getting fucked over so often. It's like a cult doesn't just get pushed by one person. It's systemic, and we all did it. It's just that some people did it when they were adults, and some people did it when they were in high positions of power. And that's a big difference. Some people know more than other people know.
Yeah. That's right. And I don't mind saying, since we're talking about former senior executives who should be basically being like, here's all the crimes I committed, and here's how David Miscavige either ordered it or knew about it, is in Mike Rinder's entire book, he didn't tell one fucking thing that would matter criminally at all.
Mm.
And that's what a lot of people, including Tony Ortega and Leah Remini, privately will tell you, were very disappointed that his book was a fucking nothing burger when it should have been the biggest tell-all that would have ruined David Miscavige's life. And it's
Right.
like, if the most senior executives aren't going to have knowledge of what happened, then how the fuck can you say David Miscavige does? That's the problem.
Right. Yes. Right. And again, I don't know that David Miscavige knew certain things, but I know that Tom did. And so as somebody, once again, who I would think he would be speaking to, or at least be among people who would be speaking to, that would be my question. That would be where I would be like, I don't know if I can get on board with this. This isn't to say anybody else shouldn't, but I'm kind of like, you know, I have this thing in my mind. So
yeah. There's one other difference. This is what I remembered. Anything that I, as a Sea Org member at ASHO, even the worst thing that I could have theoretically observed or done or participated in, my reports don't go to David Miscavige.
Right. Yeah.
My weekly report, I mean, anyone can write a report and copy it to anybody.
Right.
But the reports that I would write every week for my post went right across the street to the Continental Liaison Office.
Right.
Whatever happened to that information from there, I think I know, but I can't say that I know.
That's true.
Whereas
right.
Tom DeVox,
Right.
weekly, not weekly, daily
Right.
report
Right.
goes right to David, went right to David Miscavige. And
Right.
what were you telling me earlier about even your mom?
Yeah. So the entire time when I was at Flag with my mom, and she worked in an office with Tom DeVox, Jenny DeVox, and like one or two other people. And every day they did a daily report to David Miscavige. It was like this big scramble.
Daily.
Yeah. It was called the DR.
And this is to a man that claims to have no involvement in the day-to-day affairs of the Church of Scientology.
Right. Yeah.
Daily report from these senior most executives on the Flagland base.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it was like a big deal to get this done every single day. So, you know, that would be something that would be interesting to talk about.
To the best of your recollection, who was it? It sounded like multiple people were working on one report.
Yeah, but I know that it came from my mom, but it was Tom and Jenny.
That's because technically your mom was senior to Tom when she was on the base.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Now, that was before 1996. My mom was no longer there, and I was there from 1996 until 2000. So that whole time my mom wasn't there at all.
And so and that's how you came to even know about this thing, is because your mom's working on it every day with Tom. Was it also with Debbie? Not really.
Debbie wasn't in the office
right
at that time. Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Debbie had to work on it as well, or the reports came from Debbie and part of that was reported.
Right.
Yeah.
So especially when we're talking about an initiative that's called the Indict David Miscavige Initiative.
Right.
Well, how would the government do that? It would start by rolling up some of his most senior people, accusing them of crimes, getting dirt on them, getting them to confess, getting them to cooperate. But that's not how that's not how the executives who've left Scientology have treated this. They've treated this, I've got a great story about what a bad guy David Miscavige is. And I don't even mean to say that dismissively, because I love those stories. Those stories are valuable. Those stories get people out of Scientology. I'm here for it all day long.
Yeah.
Those stories are not the Indict David Miscavige Initiative stories.
Right. Right. Yeah.
It's got to be, here's the crimes I committed under David Miscavige's orders and leadership and supervision. And you can only tell those stories if you had a direct line to David Miscavige, and that's not everyone.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And even if somebody above that knows, like for instance, if you say you reported to the CLO, well, maybe somebody who's at management base knows that report went from the CLO up to David Miscavige. That's not something that you can say directly. That might be something that Tom can say directly, though, or Mike Rinder, or my mom.
Right.
You know.
And I know there. I got a sense that there was an emphasis from Tom on trying to get out new whistleblowers, and I go, let's count how
Right.
many people worked at high-level international positions
Mhm.
with direct contact with and involvement with David Miscavige and are out.
Mhm.
Matt Pesch, Amy Scobie, Mike Rinder,
Mhm.
Tom DeVocht, Biddy Miscavige, Ronnie Miscavige,
Mhm.
Janice Gillum Grady, Mark Fisher.
Mhm.
I think there was some
And Claire, I guess.
Claire, and even your aunt,
Oh yeah, my aunt Sarah. Yeah,
Sarah who?
Sarah Mortland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many more fucking people you want?
Right.
Where's the
Yeah.
stories?
Yeah. Right. My
Where's the
dad,
stories of
too.
here's all the crimes that were committed? And we say crimes. See, crimes is a word that gets thrown around very loosely in Scientology to mean anything from talking back to, you
Right.
know, being up late for post. But we're talking about, if you want to call it the Indict David Miscavige initiative, then you have to be talking about crimes for which someone could be put into prison. And, you know, I'm all for proving this connection is real, but I'm sorry, on the totem pole, on the rank of important things to be talking about, doing a giant letter writing campaign to people with disconnected family members in the Sea Org doesn't seem to rise to the level of all of the rapes and the sexual assaults and the suicides. And I mean, I don't know what else.
Right, and child abuse.
The child trafficking and the labor trafficking
Right.
and the sex trafficking. Because remember,
Right.
not reporting child sex abuse to the authorities
Mhm.
is sex trafficking.
Right.
When it's being done by an organization with a whole systemic closed system put in place where the organization benefits from not reporting these things. We should put Tom DeVocht in touch with Kimberly DeGonia.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, disconnection is not illegal. Now, separating kids from their parents may be. And so that would be a good place to start, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's also something like just like I mentioned at the beginning of this stream, I was separated from my parents. Tom DeVocht was my guardian. I mean, he basically sat there and witnessed while 3 people held me down, stopping me from calling my parents. Now, I know that Tom didn't do this because he's evil. I know that he did it because he was in a cult. But like, I don't know. That's a pretty big deal. And that was my guardian at the time. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Tom had those same stories of
3
his own.
grown people holding down a child. First of all, that's assault.
Yeah.
To prevent you from calling your parent. I mean, that's a crime.
Right. Yeah. Was David Miscavige sitting there telling him to do that or telling them to do that? No, not that I was aware of, not in that moment. In fact, I saw David Miscavige a few days later and he asked me why I was in trouble. And I told him why. So I know for sure he didn't know at that time.
And then what did Dave say to you?
He said, no more special treatment for you.
But I bet Tom has some amazing stories about what he had to put in his daily reports to Dave about what was going on, or what orders came down from Dave and Shelley about you. Like, so that's the thing. It's
Right.
not about, Tom, you're responsible for everything. Nobody's responsible for everything,
That's right. Yeah.
including David Miscavige. So let's start talking.
Yes. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And if there's things that people can talk about, like these big overarching systems like child trafficking that they can't prove are directly related to David Miscavige, then okay, let's add Scientology to the list too. We can take them down too while in this process, because that would be just as good.
Yeah. Oh, the suicide, the cover up of the suicide of Stacey Moxon.
Right. Yeah.
That's an example.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there's people with first hand. Who is it that told your mom that?
It was Marion Powell.
Marion Powell.
Right.
And no one in this, perhaps no one in this world other than your mom would be able to say for sure that Marion Powell, I think she's actually on one of the board of directors of the Church of Scientology International,
okay.
had firsthand involvement in covering up a suicide.
Right.
Because
and hiding a note from Stacey Moxon after she killed herself.
The suicide note was found and was hidden, and one has to wonder. Was her father lied to about her suicide?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Was Kendrick Moxon lied to by the church he works for?
Well, I lived with Stacy's little sister at the time, and she told me, like when I came back into the room, her name was Audrey. She told me, "Oh, my sister was just trying to get save these animals from this thing." So no, it's not. I mean, I don't know what they would have told her sister, but
So they lied to her.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
And you know that Brian Moxon's her brother, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. These are real crimes.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I don't want it to come across like I'm a cheerleader for this initiative.
Right.
I'm a cheerleader for this project.
Right.
I'm a cheerleader to hear these stories. I'm not going to be sitting hearing these stories being like, you fucking sick fuck.
Exactly.
I'm going to be like, thank you.
That is so brave.
Thank you
for acknowledging what everyone else went through.
Yes.
And for being brave enough to come forward and say this.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I would feel. It'd be like my fucking hero.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Because the number of people who have been sent to the RPF for crimes against children is significant.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Every one of those. And let's be honest, we know David Miscavige knows about all these things. Okay. To finish the RPF, you have to have RTC approval.
Right.
Now, do they all get checked by Dave? Do they all get checked by, were they all checked by Shelley? Or is it just the local RTC rep? I don't know.
Please
I'm
tell
all
us.
ears.
Yes.
Explain it.
Yeah. And
because
also,
it doesn't all have to just go back to David Miscavige. It could also go back to his lieutenants, the RTC reps.
Which makes Scientology, the organization, the church, guilty.
A criminal enterprise.
It doesn't even have to go back to David Miscavige in order for Scientology to have a system in place.
That's right.
That is sex trafficking.
Yes.
And child abuse.
That's right.
It doesn't need to go back to David Miscavige. In fact, it's harder to prove.
Well, because if it's an ongoing criminal enterprise, that means everyone who works in it is working for the criminal enterprise. You can't say the only criminal is David Miscavige.
Right.
But the law doesn't require you to say that.
Right.
He's the head of it. Yes, we want him indicted. Yes, we want him in prison.
Yeah.
But in criminal enterprises, it's not just the guy at the top who goes to jail.
That's right.
Even in the Manson family, which was one of the examples that Tom used, it's like Manson wasn't the only family member who went to prison.
Right. And we're not even saying we want Tom to go to prison.
No, none of these people are going to go to prison because the government is not interested in sending these people to prison.
Right.
That's the thing.
Right. Yeah.
All the more reason to start singing.
Right. Yeah.
You're not in danger.
Yeah. Right.
Getting really excited.
We're like yelling.
because I know in the past, some people who have said similar things to what we're saying now have said it in a way, I'm just being honest, that would be very accusatory of like, someone could not be blamed for feeling that they're being told it was all your fault. You're the criminal. You did everything. And that's not the tone here.
Right.
That's not the tone. That is not the flow. That is not how I feel.
Right.
I don't hold anything against anyone they did in the Sea Org. Except for Ben Monahan, that son of a bitch. I'm going to kick the shit out of that. No, but honestly, like, I don't understand I don't understand the reticence. I truly think that Mike Rinder, personally, I have no inside scoop on this. I think Mike was worried that kind of like when Lisa McPherson died, who is it that brought the lawsuit? A bunch of Lisa McPherson's family members who honestly had nothing to do with her. Okay. So I believe that Mike Rinder was concerned that if he admitted to knowing or being involved in certain things, that those people's non-Scientologist family members could sue him, and it would screw him, it would screw Christy, it would screw the kids. I truly think, especially since Mike was very involved in legal and he knew what risk would be there, what risk wouldn't be there. I think that's what he was concerned about.
That was a concern of his, yeah.
And yet I think it was unfounded. I think he just knew that it was possible, and so he wasn't going to talk about this stuff.
Right.
But he was fucking wrong.
Yeah.
Nobody was going. Oh, I guess I realized I was going to say nobody was going to prosecute him, but the truth is anybody can sue over anything. So anyway.
That's true, but they can't also just sue him and not have Scientology be involved, you know?
You're right. But he could have been like, yeah, but I'm not coming along for the ride.
Yeah.
You know? I think if someone has those real concerns, it would just be nice to hear them say it out loud.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff I want to talk about, and I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to put my head out like that.
Right. Yeah. I feel like
My
that
neck out
would
like
be
that.
real.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it would be like, okay. And then it's like not sort of like this. I'm not saying the David Miscavige thing is a decoy, but it sounds to me, I'm speaking for myself, it can sound a little bit disingenuous when you know that person, you saw the work that they did at that base. And like, I also know David Miscavige, and to act like it was just all that one person does not personally track with me. It doesn't also track for the times in Scientology when I was mean too. I'm not blaming David Miscavige for those things. I am sometimes blaming Scientology, and I'm also blaming the little part inside of me that enjoyed that power and that did that bad thing because I felt like I needed it. And that's what we're asking other people to do, but who know about things. Well, that's what I think that other people should do. Aaron's not asking anybody to do something that's my personal opinion as somebody who.
I mean, I think I'm asking people to do that.
Yeah. Okay, good. I just didn't want to be like.
No, I mean, I think
Aaron
I am.
says,
It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah, let's get real.
Yeah.
Let's get real about what really happened there. And then we will, I can fully support that. It would be the bravest fucking thing in the world to be like, I did this. I fucked up. I oversaw this thing. And I would be the first person to be like, dude, you grew up in a harsh environment.
Yeah.
Like, of course you did that. Of course. That's why we want to get rid of that system.
Yeah.
Not just that person who grew up in the same way that you did.
I mean, I've always said, I don't know why we don't hear more from former recruiters, former ethics officers, and former registrars. Mm-hmm. The guys who, in the way I think about it, in a regular organization, are doing the dirtiest of the work that there is to be done.
Right.
Doesn't make them uniquely bad or anything. They had the misfortune of being an ethics officer or a registrar or a recruiter. And I thank God every day that I never had to be those things in Scientology, because I would have washed out and I would have left.
Right. Yeah.
Not because I was too good and I couldn't take it morally. I'm terrible at those things, and I would have gotten busted.
Well, that's interesting that you mentioned it, because I was an ethics officer in CMO.
You were an ethics officer?
For, like
spill your guts.
Yeah, I will. I had a really hard time being an ethics officer because one of the ethics officers I worked with was a psychotic, evil bitch who would try to ruin people's lives.
Who?
Valerie Haney. And I had a huge problem with it. And I would write her up all the time. And I got busted. I'm just saying, like, I did cause problems for her. Oh. It wasn't okay with me. It didn't sit, like, the policy in Scientology was that if you're the ethics officer, you're supposed to find who's bringing down the group. Well, some people are in that position and they become a tyrant. And if they actually care about Scientology, then they wouldn't be doing that. You know, if your excuse is that I thought I was helping people, then I don't know. This is a whole other subject.
Yeah.
But it was like, no, I wasn't okay with that. And no, I didn't do that. And not everybody has to behave in that same horrible way that some people do. There was another ethics officer who did not act like that, who treated people with kindness. At the time, it was Emily Jones. Yeah. Emily was just nicer and more chill. I'm sure Emily's done lots of horrible things too, you know, but there is a difference. People are a little bit responsible for what they do in some way, or they can, well, it seems stupid to say they can walk away, but many people have. Tom chose to walk away because he could no longer take how it is. That is commendable. You know, Valerie chose to walk away eventually because I guess, you know, she didn't want to keep doing that in one way or another. So that part of it is commendable, but there is some responsibility. There's a little bit of responsibility for what you do when you're there. And there's the cult responsibility, and David Miscavige too.
The thing is, even David Miscavige being the head of the organization, it does make him the head of this ongoing criminal enterprise. Whether it's all his fault or not is actually not relevant. Right. He's the man in charge.
Right.
That's all that matters.
Yes, it's true.
He does know about these things. He does order them. The people who he has empowered orders them. He does get informed of these things through compliance reports and and daily reports and weekly reports and and inspections and stuff like that.
Right.
You don't have to say everything is his fault in order for him to be indicted under RICO.
Exactly. Yeah.
It actually, no one's going to believe you if you say everything's his fault.
Right. Yes. Yeah. But it's easy to prove that it's Scientology's fault.
Right. Or the people in Scientology. Because everything's done by a person.
Right. Yeah. But it's all Scientology. It's
all based on
if someone
Scientology.
in Scientology
Yes.
does something bad and they work there, Scientology is guilty.
I
If
see
they're
what you
doing
mean.
it in a Scientology position.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the name of Scientology. It's just like
Right.
if somebody in a regular organization like sexually assaults a junior person,
Right,
that
the
organization is
organization,
fucked
yes,
too.
yes.
If they don't, especially if they knew about it and they didn't do anything about it.
Right.
You know?
Right. And so, so I'd said, I've always wondered, well, why don't we hear more from former ethics officers and former recruiters and former registrars? And I can even expand that. I mean, like, could you imagine someone who's a former RPF IC or even an RPF CS
Yes.
or even a senior qualsec over a cont RPF
or
a COCMO like Tom DeVocht?
Right. Yes.
I cringe if I feel like I'm coming down on time when really I'm like could not be more excited at hearing all of Tom's stories.
I know, and
that's what I want to hear
out there too.
That's what. Yeah, Tom's the one actually trying to do something. So I'm not trying to
But as
give
we
him
both
shit.
know, you put yourself out there, and then
You put yourself out there. You get some shit, Tom. Exhibit A. Okay.
Call us, Tom.
Call me.
We'll talk in private.
Call me. I could not be a bigger cheerleader for the project, for the initiative, for people telling their stories. It's also why I'd like to see Tom do videos. Like your blog. Now, why do I say videos? Do a video, tell the story, be relatable. People, look you in the eyes, hear your voice, appreciate what you're doing, and then publish a transcript of the video as a blog post. Or publish an accompanying blog post to go with the video or something like that. But a blog post is not going to go viral. Your video could go viral. Now, maybe you're like, well, I'm not trying to go viral. Okay, well, who are you trying to reach? Who are you trying to reach? And I just think doing videos would be a better way to get the information out to people. But that's just me. That's a personal preference. I happen to know a thing or two about it. I happen to be in favor of it. I have a history of encouraging other people to do the same. And I mean, the greatest gift would be Tom leading by example and showing all the other former INT executives and middle management executives and perhaps even continental executives, this is what it looks like to actually spill your guts and say, yeah, this is what I did, or this is what someone under me did, and then I found out about it, and I had to punish them, and I did this. When you're the COCMO, you're the most powerful Sea Org member on the entire base, and when you're the COCMO Clearwater, it does not get much more powerful than that.
Right. That's the biggest money maker for all of Scientology.
And you're with Dave all the time.
Right. Yes.
And when you're not, you're with his closest people.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just, I can't describe what a gift it is to have Tom leading this charge.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to hear what people actually did.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And on top of it, I truly think that Tom is a nice enough person and a good enough person that, I don't know, I think that he would be brave enough to do that. I honestly believe that.
Yeah. And actually, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't think he's intentionally not doing it.
Right.
I think for some reason it doesn't occur to these folks that it's what matters.
Yeah. I don't know what the intention is. I don't know if it's intentional or not. Sometimes I see these senior executives and they're like, it was Dave. And I'm like, I mean, no, that seems like you're trying to get away with shit and blame it on someone else. I know I'm not trying to contradict myself. I'm just saying that's a normal human reaction. People need to do that in order to safeguard how they feel about themselves, in order to make sure they don't go to jail, in order to safeguard how other people feel about them, Yeah. And so it's easier. I'm not saying that's what Tom's doing, but yeah, I guess, I don't know. That's how I feel when I see people doing that.
Yeah. And here's the thing, Tom's putting his neck out there.
Yeah, he is.
Even though Tom's not Tom's not telling the stories Aaron wants to hear.
Right.
Tom is putting his neck out there by making himself the face of a movement that has as its primary goal putting David Miscavige in prison. That's putting a huge target on your back.
Yeah.
So this isn't me being like, Tom's not doing enough. No. And I'm probably repeating myself 10 times over at this point. Like, Tom's clearly put a lot of time and work and thought and effort into this thing so far. Mm-hmm. based on all the blog posts that he's done about it and the grassroots campaigns he's trying to he's encouraging others to do.
Mhm.
But that's when I go, that might be an idea,
Mhm.
but can we just start with the crimes that you saw?
Right. Yeah.
Because
yeah.
that seems a little more on point.
Right. Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah. Yeah. And this is our commentary on Tom.
All right, let's scoot a little closer and we'll take some of these starred comments.
Okay.
Watch my feet. All right. All right. Mary Graham says, I wonder what Dave did to pull asthma in. Has anyone asked him that? What was your awareness, in your earlier life of Dave's asthma? Was that a known thing?
I remember Shelly would talk with me about it in her office. She would always say, Dave has these lines on his face because he had asthma as a child, but I never heard it be talked about that he still had asthma. I also had asthma as a child. And so I was like, oh, we're the same. I'm special.
Do you know most people grow out of their asthma?
Right.
And
if they have childhood asthma, yeah.
And Dave did have childhood asthma.
Yeah, but I think he was more like 14 or something like that when he had it.
Huh.
I was like little.
Broken Shadow Feather. Are squirrels people that practice Scientology but don't go through official offices? Those people are definitely called squirrels. But even in Scientology, if you're someone who constantly messes up what you're supposed to do, like a squirrel is someone who incorrectly does Scientology.
Yeah, who alters L. Ron Hubbard's
And so
policies.
So practicing Scientology outside of the Church of Scientology definitely qualifies as being a squirrel. Okay, Eileen Bradley. De Vocht is a Dutch-Belgian last name pronounced completely differently and freely translated means the moisture.
Tom is Belgian.
I think that's what she's saying.
Oh, well, I thought she was like guessing. And I was like, you guessed right. Maybe she knows.
Pronounced completely different and freely translated means the moisture. That's amazing. Thank you for that one. Joe Bloggins, pretty obvious that divergent views in this Scientology space make it very difficult to get everyone moving in the same direction on absolutely anything. That is true.
Yeah.
The Scientology Money Project. This is Jeff Augustine. L. Ron Hubbard created the pink legs policy to offload the dirty deeds onto his subordinates. Same with David Miscavige. Pink legs, 100%. I'm really glad that you mentioned that. That comes from the Responsibility of Leaders policy letter, the third dynamic power formula. You know the part that this comes from?
No. I know, and I feel like I know that policy pretty well.
This actually became a phrase at PAC. Pink legs.
Oh.
Pink legs. So there's a part where when L. Ron Hubbard is saying all the things that Manuela Sáenz would have done if she was properly applying this formula, she's like, she would have had his enemies quietly disposed of. Or actually, I'm getting my quotes mixed up here. And all Simone would have ever seen is perhaps walking by, the barn and seeing and asking, what are those pink legs sticking out under there? And it would have been like the dead body of one of his enemies that was killed without telling him or asking permission.
This is the thing. Like in Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard encourage you taking initiative.
Yeah.
That's what the executives in Scientology do. That's how they get promoted.
Yeah.
So that was just a perfect example.
And that's an example of where the policy itself, created by L. Ron Hubbard and enforced ruthlessly by David Miscavige, would actually encourage and require you to commit crimes without asking for permission and sometimes without telling him afterwards.
Right.
Why are you going to put the burden on his shoulders now?
Right, exactly.
But it's still part of the ongoing criminal enterprise.
Right. It's like completed staff work. I mean, we should do a video about that because they don't know what the fuck we're talking about with Simon Bolivar and Manuela Sáenz.
The real people in the real world actually know who Simone Bolivar is.
I know, but they don't know that L. Ron Hubbard's using her as an example of how she could have given more power to her.
So L. Ron Hubbard was infatuated with Simone Bolivar.
Simon.
No, it's Simone. They're Latin.
Okay.
It's not Simon.
All right.
That's so American centric of you. Simone Bolivar and Manuela Sáenz.
Okay. Manuela.
Oh, yeah, it's Manuela.
Yeah.
See, I messed it up. Anyway, L. Ron Hubbard uses Simone Bolivar and his concubine mistress. What she wasn't.
Consort.
Yeah, he calls her all sorts of terrible things. as an example of a person who had power, and then the person was connected to the power, and that as someone connected to power, it is your job to push power to your boss, basically.
Right.
And
It's called the responsibilities of leaders.
is the name of the policy.
Yeah.
But at the end is a formula called the third dynamic power formula.
Right. And it basically talks about how the person, like a lower level leader, gives the most, how the things that they can do in order to support and to make the leader who they're supporting the most powerful they can
Yeah.
be.
The story is how Manuela Sáenz could have kept Simón Bolívar from basically dying poor in a ditch.
Yes, that's right.
And could have kept him in power and become the most powerful person in the world, basically.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And that people who work for powerful people have that
responsibility
right. to their leader.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting.
I've actually done a video about it.
Now say what the pink legs thing means with
we
all
did.
That reference. Okay.
We did. Okay. It means pink legs means if you have, in this case, Manuela should have had all of her husband's enemies killed without asking for permission and without letting him know it was her.
Yeah.
That's actually what L. Ron Hubbard says in the book.
Exactly.
In the policy.
Yes. Yeah.
And by the way, this is a policy all Scientology staff members have to read and understand clearly.
Yes.
And he's talking about a real life scenario. These are not fictional characters. He's literally saying that the proper application of Scientology policy would be that if you are in this position, you should literally have people killed.
Exactly, but not put the responsibility on your boss for having done so, which is just another example of, to be honest, why how lower level executives underneath David Miscavige are required to take initiative without his orders, and then to get things done without it ever having become his problem.
That's right. And it's funny because even though we could sit here and say that technically that's what a serial member should do, if you're actually found to have not reported vital information that caused some sort of a flap, then you get in trouble for that too.
Well, just right.
So it's almost like don't ask, don't tell. But if we found out you didn't tell, you're in deep shit. Right, it's like for real. It's a funny one. It was funny to me. Jeffrey Augustine, to go after a kingpin begins with a ground up investigation of the organization. Exactly. Constance June, you got to get people to admit the crimes who did them, and also not tell the FBI don't go in. Oh, yes.
I don't know what that's in reference to, but you can tell me later.
When the trafficking investigation was going on, and the FBI was considering raiding the base.
Oh, okay.
Several people who, just for shits and giggles, I won't mention, have said that when the FBI asked them if they raided the place, like, would people come? Certain former Sea Org execs basically was like, nah, nobody would come with you. Kind of like they want to be there. And so
I see.
I'm sure that wasn't the reason the base didn't get raided, but it probably helped. Old Frizz, to be fair, we don't know exactly what a lot of the older execs have told the FBI. We don't. And I don't, maybe it's just because I've, been on YouTube for so long. I kind of go, if you could tell the FBI, you could tell the rest of the world.
Right. Yeah. Like I'm fucking sick of waiting for the FBI.
It's not like the FBI is not now the owner of that information.
Right.
And it's not like if you told the rest of the world, now the FBI can't do anything with the information.
Right.
It's like, I'm sick. I don't give a shit. Like,
maybe telling the rest of the world would make the fucking FBI do something with the information.
Exactly.
Maybe not. They probably don't care.
Julia O'Connell, not to mention the sex trafficking, children being abused, and trafficking RICO crimes. These should all be discussed. Ren again, self-incrimination is a serious threat to the process of trying to indict David Miscavige. I think it means people's concern about self-incrimination.
Yeah.
And I agree. Yeah. And that concern is what will prevent David Miscavige from being indicted. So if it's going to happen, we need people willing to go, you know what? I don't think anything is going to happen to me from putting this information out. But if it does, okay.
Right.
I mean, easy for me to say, right? Because I'm not the one admitting to this stuff.
Right.
But yeah. Okay. Northern Girl. They're all responsible for enforcing the tech. They need to step up. Old Frizz, I mean, Matt Pesh openly said on YouTube he supervised funds being released to move predators. That's a confession right there. Exactly. And he made it clear it wasn't a one-off. I go, okay, let's hear the rest of the stories. And not only that, let's hear the names of everybody involved.
Right.
Let's hear the name of the person who came, the person who did it, the person who came to you. Like, let's hear everything.
Yeah.
And maybe your report didn't go to David Miscavige, but let's just hear everything.
Right. Yeah.
Amazon wish list wonders. Okay. I'm not a Scientologist, but I dated one and I still don't understand what I got myself into. Rose Gold, Scientology's MO, get everyone's hands dirty so that they'll fear speaking out. Yes. Liz, Gail. Good to see you, Liz. I applaud you guys for having a calm conversation about this topic and explaining the controversy clearly. Thank you. Julia O'Connell, I feel Mike Rinder and the high-level executives could have done more to explain the crimes they committed in Scientology. They could expose the crimes as well. Does it matter to you? Not to me. Good to see you. Is Tom part of the new litigation? That question is too specific to have a specific answer because there's no specific lawsuit that has been filed. But I'll tell you, I'm going to make sure Tom DeVocht gets put in touch with Kimberly DeGonia. And I'm sure, look, Tom is a incredibly valuable resource for the public relations sphere and the legal sphere. So, I mean, I think the answer is no matter what, inevitably, yes. Inevitably and eventually. Liz, Gail. Just because abuse has been normalized generationally doesn't mean we have to accept it. I like it. Paula Candeloro, thank you so much for being a channel member for 4 months. Trish Briggs, thank you so much for being a member for 6 months. Hey there, Jenna. George, would you say that Grant Cardone is a subliminal Scientology recruiter, or is he just out to enrich himself? I think he's a pretty overt Scientology recruiter, George. And he's out to enrich himself. So that's a twofer on that question. Elston, good to see you, Elston. Thank you for gifting 5 channel memberships. That is very generous of you. JSS Tiger. David Miscavige has little man syndrome. He's the chihuahua that will rip your leg off. Oh, where's my little David Miscavige doll? Oh, he's too far away.
Like, don't leave me here with this.
Rose Gold, thank you for being a channel member for 7 months. Great conversation and important points. Thank you. Julia O'Connell, there is many abuses not talked about. Yes. And thank you for being a channel member for 15 months. Nana, Truth Forever. I love Jenna's earnestness. Love your heart.
Oh, thank you.
Tiago Booth. What can average citizens do to help bring down David? Well, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but I feel like the answer is nothing. Just support the people that are trying to support that effort. I mean, do you have a better answer?
Support the SPTV Foundation.
Support the SPTV Foundation.
Or,
Absolutely.
I was thinking earlier, like, someone was saying there's a lot of risk that Tom takes on by admitting these things himself. Like, I feel like if there was a situation where he was doing this and then he needed support because it made it hard for him to have his job or I don't know, like, I think, but that's not necessarily a thing. So,
well, actually, I just realized that's actually that is actually a better answer too. Since we are giving Tom a little bit of heat, we can also give him some support.
Yeah.
Over on Substack, I wish I had his Substack pulled up here. I'll pin a link. I'll pin a link in the comments down below. Tom DeVocht on Substack. You can be a subscriber. You can be a paid subscriber, and he said that helps him dedicate as much time as possible to the effort. So
yeah, exactly.
Nurse Lori. I think what has actually happened to so many children has been somewhat sugarcoated to protect perpetrators. I wish Matt Pesh would tell the truth about what he did financially to hide perpetrators. Now, the truth is, the only reason any of us even know this story from Matt Pesh is because he told the story. So,
right. Yeah, that's true.
He did tell the story.
Yeah.
I think some people were troubled by how nonchalantly he told the story and how he was, it was all sort of a little humorous. But the truth is, that's just kind of how Matt is about everything.
Right.
He's just kind of an easygoing sort of, nothing's terribly serious.
Right.
I'm not saying that negatively.
No, I know. Yeah.
And also it was his life.
Totally. Yeah. But even, no, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just even thinking like Matt Pesh is somebody who I saw in the hallway nearly every day as a young child separated from my family.
Mhm.
You know, he would have seen this. He would have, this is not to blame Matt now, but like, you know, you're talking about doing work study, payments from orgs that come into Flag, you know, you having to work because the org is not paying that money. It's just as an executive in the Flag service organization, there are certain things that you're going to know that I wouldn't necessarily know as a dumb child trying to understand a policy, you know?
One of the problems that would come up from having kids do work kids are not supposed to do happened as an example when my brother was for his work study was on some project of taking the old financial accounts files and upgrading them to some new system. Everything had to be manually put in. But Colin didn't understand the difference between like lira and pesos and dollars. And so accounts were being miscredited with like hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars were either being miscredited or not credited enough. And it was a huge problem. Yeah, imagine taking, 13, 14-year-olds and having them, in the financial computer files, with foreign currencies and everything.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah, I'm sure there's not a single Scientology account that's accurate.
Oh my God, that is so funny.
Okay, Marilyn Honig, good to see you, Marilyn. When Tom says we are Scientology, yes, they were. Those crimes did not commit themselves.
That's right.
And it wasn't just David Miscavige. That's a good one. Angela Wilkinson, enjoying your book now. How frustrating. I'm glad you got out.
Oh, thank you.
There you go. That's right. We should plug your book. What's it called? Beyond
Belief, My Secret Life Inside Scientology and My Harrowing Escape.
Such a long title.
I know. The second part of it is really long.
But if you just do Scientology Beyond Belief, it's going to come up.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
Jenna Miscavige Beyond Belief, it's going to come up, right?
Yeah.
Do you think of that as your title?
Beyond Belief.
Just Beyond Belief.
Yeah.
Okay, Julia O'Connell. His files were destroyed. They said the statutes of limitations had run out. Oh, that must be a follow-up on a previous comment.
Yeah.
Sarasota Jerry's is in the chat. Hi, Jenna and Aaron. Hi, Jerry. Looking forward to seeing you on Friday. Katie did. Tom could get a lawyer and go to the FBI, ask to be an unindicted co-conspirator, just like all the Diddy stuff. I'm assuming Tom has spoken to the FBI.
Yeah, but I don't know about being an unindicted co-conspirator. I mean, I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
You can tell me later.
Oracle 1, when you listen to Diddy's trial, this is exactly what they're trying to prove. Others did things, but sometimes it was through loyalty and sometimes fear or both. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and sometimes it was for power and clout.
Yeah. According to Mike's own blog and interviews, the OSA daily report was compiled by Mike Rinder, passed to Marty Rathbun, and finally hand-delivered to David Miscavige in an unmarked envelope. In the modern Sea Org era?
I don't know. I know that when my mom did a daily report, it was on the Merck system.
Yeah.
Which was like, I don't know, what is that?
It's like an intranet. It's like an internal internet.
I see.
That just connects terminals. But
Yeah.
I think it was through did they do it through microwaves?
I think it was like radio wave. Actually,
it was a huge microwave dish on top of ASI and then on top of some
I
other.
have no idea how it was done.
Jeff Augustine actually knows a thing or two about that.
Yeah.
So Merck was like a closed, internal, encrypted, instant email messaging system.
Yeah. I think Foster invented it.
And none of the rank and file Sea Org members were allowed to even lay eyes on this thing. I've never touched a Merck terminal. I only heard of it from CMO people.
Oh, okay. In my mind,
I don't even
okay.
Like, was it just a software that was installed in your computers, or was there dedicated terminals?
Dedicated terminals. They were like huge. It was like TVs, like they were big, and then it was like green writing. Like
the old DOS?
Yeah, exactly.
Where were they?
On everyone's desk in CMO.
Everyone had one of these big Merck terminals on their desk?
Well, in the end, yeah.
At Flag or at LA?
When I was in CMO ICU in middle management, everyone had one. Well,
I shared
one with like 5 people, but I didn't really have any use for it.
Did you use Market Flag?
No, I didn't.
By the way,
yeah.
Merc is MER. It's like short for Mercury. MER.
Isn't it like, oh no, I'm thinking of income.
That's income.
Yeah.
No, so Merc, if you want what it stands for, it's supposed to be short for Mercury, like it's fast, like, isn't it?
I have no idea.
Heather told me that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Because I think Heather had a Merc terminal in her office.
Yeah, my dad worked at Incom when I was like really little.
Oh, guys,
He knows
INCOM
his
is
stuff.
the Scientology organization responsible for all the computerization. It
Yeah.
stands for the International Network of Computerized Organized Management.
Okay, good. Yeah, that.
Because I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
Jenna said she always thought I was a nerd in Scientology. That's why I remember
Only
that
in
shit.
Scientology.
Okay, so the Merc. Okay, so you're saying your guys' weekly reports, daily reports were on the Merc system.
Yeah.
No paperwork.
No.
Okay, interesting. Lorraine in the Pacific Northwest, a Church of Scientology is not a harmless religion. Old Frizz, have either of you spoken to those amazing solicitors? I think they want input from everyone, even if they don't personally have a case. It is all part of the big picture. I've been putting people in touch with the Kimberly DeGonia and her firm for quite a while now. So I'm trying not to speak about who's already spoken and who hasn't spoken and who's got a case and who doesn't have a case, because I don't think it's healthy to keep updated at that level, to keep everybody updated at that level. I think things need to move forward at the speed that they are moving without a lot of external input. I think that's how I'm most comfortable. Julia O'Connell, Lisa Marie Presley was getting ready to testify in the Danny Masterson trial before she died. She absolutely was going to put Scientology on blast. That is true. Liz Gale, we just need to make policy that makes putting minors on the e-meter illegal, in my opinion. I mean, I'd support that. JSS Tiger, it's all Galactic Emperor Xenu's fault. If he did not send aliens to Earth in DC-8 planes 75 million years ago, we wouldn't have any of these problems. I agree. Elston Gunn, thank you so much for gifting 5 more channel memberships. That's amazing. Constance June, true, the government could give Mike immunity. True, the government could give Mike immunity. The government could not protect him from a civil lawsuit. Yes, exactly. Marilyn Honig, haven't the INT execs said that they told the FBI everything? If that's true, why is this initiative so necessary? Oh, that's kind of an interesting point. I'm going to have to think on that and revisit it.
Me too.
Literally, Lisa from H-Town. I wish Mike would have admitted to everything on his deathbed. I honestly thought that he would. No, it went a totally other direction.
Yeah, he was busy with other stuff.
Yeah, I was busy with, yes. Arkansas Flamingo. Thank you both for sharing, though my heart breaks so. Thank you, Arkansas Flamingo.
Hi, Arkansas Flamingo.
Julia O'Connell. It's awful that the FBI was going to, but because an FBI agent was helping Mark and Claire, this is the excuse that they did not raid the base. If this is true, the FBI screwed the pooch. I don't know that if it's quite as cut and dry as that, Julia, but that was an issue. Do you know what they're talking about?
No.
So the FBI agent, I'm gonna get this mixed up. There was a lawsuit, there was civil lawsuits going on, and there was the FBI investigation. And what happened was that the agent working on the investigation became aware that
What investigation?
Into Scientology.
Okay.
Trafficking.
Okay.
That one of the documents that she had in her possession for the criminal investigation would help the person that was suing Scientology.
Okay.
And shared the file. And Scientology's attorneys obviously saw this file that was shared and knew where it came from and knew that it shouldn't have come. You know, like that's crossing a line.
Oh, okay.
And it also showed a little bit of bias on behalf of the agent.
Oh, I see.
And the agent was either disciplined or removed and the case was closed. But I cannot say for sure that the case was closed because of that. Do you see what I mean?
See. Yeah, right.
But it was a big
scandal.
It was a mistake. Yeah. Diabetic Shamwowski.
Hi, John.
I'll eat all of the chocolate you should not be eating, John. Just send it to me. Should leniency be given for being brainwashed? Of course, we were all brainwashed. I mean, say leniency, like I mean it. I do not hold anything anyone did as in their duties of being a Sea Org member against them. The reason I hate Ben Monahan so much is his horrible treatment of people had nothing to do with him executing his job duties. He was just terrible to people.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
And let's be honest, Tom DeVocht was never an executive that was known for being terrible to people. Quite the opposite. Like as an executive well, I shouldn't speak. You have more experience with him than I did. But as far as executives go,
right.
He was always kind of like sort of like the laid back, cool uncle.
Yeah. He was the nicer of many.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't mean he never did anything mean, but he was definitely like a nice person. I feel he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Loud pack vibes. How far is David Miscavige's house from yours? It's about 5 minutes.
Oh, I don't know.
So the new Sea Org, newest Sea Org guy out said that Dave lives in that tower of the superpower building. But even if he lives at the Hacienda, it's still 5 minutes away.
Okay.
And that's when he's in Florida. Like I've heard it said David Miscavige lives in Clearwater now. I do not know why it gets reported that way. David Miscavige lives wherever the hell he is at the moment. Bebop Noodle. Saw your video about the summer bash. I live near Clearwater. Should I go? Do you know if any channel followers are going? Bebop Noodle, you are the first one to message me about it. And so you should go. I'm sure you have to call and get the RSVP and get the ticket in advance. That's how they're going to keep people undesirables from showing up. You basically probably have to pick up your tickets. You have to have tickets in advance.
Oh, I see.
All right, guys, this has been a lot of fun. Any closing remarks? You all good?
I think I said a lot.
This has been a blast, guys. I'll try to throw some timestamps in here. Maybe do some segments because I think we've covered a lot of good stuff. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
We'll see you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click